Joining us now, House Majority Whip Republican Congressman Steve Scalise of Louisiana. He was on a call last night with President Trump to discuss that House health care bill. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. As you're well aware, there's resistance to this bill just from within your own caucus. Freedom Caucus, many conservatives don't like it for various reasons. There are senators who don't like it because of the rollback on Medicare eventually. What did you talk about with President Trump last night, if you could shed some light about the strategy to get this thing through?
Sure. We talked about a number of the final issues that are being resolved, working with all of our different caucuses within our conference. You've got the Freedom Caucus, you've got the Republican Study Committee, which is, the largest conference, about 175 conservatives, and then you have the Tuesday group. But look, I think one thing we're all focused on is this idea of just letting Obamacare continue on a death spiral. It's not. It might be good politically. It's not the right thing to do responsibly. And we committed that we would actually rescue people from Obamacare. And we're working through the final details of getting that done. And I think if you look at the CBO score, it confirms the biggest things that we said is that our plan will actually give you freedom. When they said 14 million people lose coverage, not one person loses coverage. They're saying 14 million people, if given the choice, would walk away from Obamacare, which means it confirms how bad Obamacare is. But our plan lowers premiums. Our plan actually cuts taxes for working families, and it reduces the deficit. So those are the things that we've been talking about for years. This isn't something that just came up over the last few weeks. We've been talking about these ideas for years. Yeah. We put this blueprint in place in our Better Way agenda, and the voters said that's what we want to do.
So, Congressman, it's that very CBO score that you're citing right now that's given some of your colleagues some pause. There's that number out there that 24 million fewer people over the course of a decade would have health insurance as compared to now if this bill went forward. I understand there are caveats in there. You cited them. The mandate, a lot of that has to do with the removal of the individual mandate. But what do you say to a congressman or a congresswoman who doesn't want to take a vote on something that, by the way, may not pass the Senate eventually anyway, that takes health care away from people in their districts?
Well, they said some of that 2 years ago when we put a bill on Barack Obama's desk to gut this law. But what I would say to them, and I have been, is go look at the CBO score, because one thing, CBO even acknowledges they're not allowed to look at all of the things that Tom Price can do as Secretary of HHS. If you read Obamacare, there's about 1,400 different places in the law where it says that the Secretary of HHS shall or may make rules to change the health care marketplace. 1,400 different powers that the Secretary is given. There's a lot of things that the Secretary can now do to go and rebuild a healthy health care marketplace that has been destroyed by Obamacare. And in fact, Secretary Price is working on those things. Those will help lower costs. And CBO, by their own admission, can't look at any of those.
All right, David Ignatius, where do you want to begin?
Congressman, what's the rush? A lot of members of your caucus and certainly a lot of Republican senators say, let's take the time to do this right. It's so important to the country. Why the rush to slam it through? Why not take more time, iron out these issues of the effects and who's going to be helped and hurt, and get it right this time?
We've been waiting 7 years. Some people are saying, why is it taking this long? So I guess when some people are saying it goes too far, some people would say it doesn't do enough, you're probably hitting the sweet spot. What we're doing is, number one, we've pulled in a lot of ideas that have been passed through the House over years. The idea of strengthening health savings accounts, everybody recognized that actually bolsters the marketplace.
This doesn't look like the sweet spot. Watching the House and Senate the last couple of
weeks. Sausage being made is not the prettiest thing, but at the same time, these are the final details that members want to do to comb through and say, how will this exactly work? A lot of people wanted to see the CBO score to see if it would lower costs. Some people are saying it might increase costs. Well, obviously it doesn't do that. It lowers costs. But what can we do on those final pieces that are being negotiated with President Trump and a number of our members in our conference that ultimately want to get to a yes vote and send this bill over to the Senate?
All right, Sam.
Well, I don't want to waste my time with a few facts, corrections, but the CBO score did say deductibles would go up, so that's one cost that would go up. And then the 14 million figure is not just the exchanges. They included people on employer health care as well as Medicaid. But I don't want to get into back and forth. What I'm curious about is from the sausage-making process, Have you had a single conversation with Steny Hoyer about working within this framework of reform to maybe get some Democratic votes?
Well, at the beginning of this process, the Democrats made it very clear they were not going to support anything that guts Obamacare.
Sure.
So immediately they said, look, if it involves getting rid of Obamacare, we don't want to be a part of that discussion. You know, and I guess you can understand they still want to ride that horse all the way down.
Have you thought about maybe, instead of doing repeal and replace, trying to reform the system within Obamacare?
The problem with Obamacare is you can't fix it. You can't tweak it around the edges. The idea of Obamacare is unelected bureaucrats in Washington tell you what you can and can't buy.
Because the Freedom Caucus says you are tweaking it around the edges, right? The Freedom Caucus says, look, you have a mandate in here that's like a continuous coverage provision. It's 30% penalty if you don't have continuous coverage. We're scaling back the Medicaid expansion, but we're not going to like completely get rid of it. We have, obviously, you can't do everything through reconciliation, so some of these regulations are. The Freedom Caucus would say you are actually tinkering around the edges.
No, and in fact, a number of Freedom Caucus members like what we're doing. You know, you look at the committees it went through. Every Freedom Caucus member that was on Energy and Commerce and Ways and Means Committee voted for this bill. It doesn't mean that they're not still trying to negotiate some final changes, but the bulk of this bill, they say, is a good bill that achieves the things we want to do, is putting people back in charge of their health care decisions, getting government bureaucrats out, and lowering costs.
House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, thank you very much.